So let's talk about getting innovative in your hoof care. Uh, when you can't buy them, you build them. So I don't know how many of you got to see my video of trimming horses in the desert. Quite a few people did because it had 110,000 views before I took it down. Uh, and I only took it down because of the idiots that started commenting on it. I guess after these videos get so many views that it starts getting recommended to idiots, and the idiots that get videos recommended to them go ahead and watch them, and then they're all shook up. Why was I watching this? Well, just because somebody recommends something to you doesn't mean you gotta watch it. Anyways, so I'll go through a brief scenario of what I ended up doing, because my two horses here, living out where I do now, were building up false sole, which was making it real hard for me to trim. And that's the other thing I'll say. There were a lot of people comments, well, you need to soak the horse's feet in water, and I do it. Somebody else commented about, I just grab it with my nippers. You couldn't. I've done that, and I've got videos up there where you see me grabbing and prying a piece of false sole and pulling it off. That was fine back east, but out here in this arid country that I'm in now, forget it. You might as well grab a rock with your nippers. So I had to find a way to get that sole off of there. So this is what I did, and this is what I came up with. I built two hoof knives. Heavy duty. These are a piece of rasp, that I modified and curved. And I'll tell you right now, because, like with any new design tool, or any new design anything, you have to make adjustments for what would make that tool better. So I'll show you here. What I did was cut this rasp off, right? Which seemed all well and good. It was easier to bend that way, and you definitely got to heat these up to bend them or they'll crack. So, but it leaves too much of a narrow edge up here to hit with your hammer. So what I would do, if and when I build another pair, is before I cut this off, I would roll this whole edge over. Or roll it over this way, sorry. So that I had a bigger edge to hit with my hammer, because this is shaped for a good hoof that has good concavity, and the amount of bevel you put on the back is also going to depend on how it cuts. And I've got a pretty long bevel on this one, because I don't want it to cut deep. I only want to try to take off that false sole. I want to try to get to the point of separation where that sole, the built up sole, is going to separate from the live sole. So I don't want this too steep, and I want to be able to adjust as I come down. So if I have too little of a bevel when you try to adjust, well, you're going to be hitting back here instead of here. So to have a lip come up here would certainly help. Would give you a little more something to hit on. But I would also stop it. I would stop that roll back here and cut it off flat here, because I actually had to cut and trim my frogs with this. So when you're going to go in and trim your frogs, you don't want to have that extra head or lip, in this section of the knife. You want it back here and up here. Otherwise, that lip is going to start running into your bars and everything else. And the other thing I talk about, you know, people talked about adding stone, and these are some of the comments I get, and you can't go back and read them because I deleted the video. But, you know, people say, well, you probably should add some stone, and I mentioned that you should soak your horse's feet. Well, I'll tell you, last week, before I did trim these guys, we got rain for 36 hours here, finally. And it rained a good amount. It was nice. I was happy to see it. But 36 hours of those horses standing in the wet. It was wet. Plenty wet enough to what you would have think would have softened those feet. I still couldn't get that false sole off with conventional tools. So that's why I came up with these. And like I said, I got a right and a left. And they worked. They got the job done. No, it wasn't the prettiest job, but you got to do what you got to do. I mean, those horses, they need to be trimmed, and that false sole needed to come off. So, you know, there's an old saying, bed your horse where you ride, and they certainly are bedded where they would be ridden if I was riding them, and I'm not. Sad to say it, but I'm not riding them. But yes, those hooves were hard as rocks, and I can go ride them out in this rocky country without any trouble. But the other factor is, I'd have to be riding them a lot. So, you know, just adding stone around here and everything, that's not going to do it for you. I mean, these horses probably walk a mile if they're lucky in a whole day. They got access to, a good 8 acres of pasture, and so they have to travel a fair amount to find anything that during the day. I mean, I feed them their hay in the morning and at night, and I let them scrounge around. That's why I keep all these paddocks and pastures open. They scrounge around, but even still, you'd be lucky if they travel a mile in a day, which isn't enough to bust up that sole. So it's like anything else in life. It requires balance. You know, if you got a horse that's got hard enough feet, well, you got to ride it enough too, in order to keep yourself from running into the trouble I've run into here. And the reason why I didn't videotape it is because I videotaped myself while I'm doing the job, and believe me, even with these 2 new tools, I had to work hard to get that sole off of there. More so on my Mustang than on my little Pinto there, just because of the differences in the hoof. She has a little bit more concavity, and she doesn't retain as much sole as he does. He retains a lot of sole like a donkey. You know, as the hoof wall grows, his sole builds up with it. So you get a lot of buildup of sole. His were the toughest ones, because for one factor, is where it wants to separate between live sole and that false sole buildup is his doesn't come off very easy. You know, some people might say leave it on. You can't leave it on. I mean, his heels were getting so damn tall. Even though they didn't go more than 6 weeks, and I actually addressed them at 3 weeks, I think. But you couldn't get that false sole off, and that's why I ended up designing these 2 knives, because I could see I'm going to be in trouble here. So, you know, learn to get creative. I mean, they do make a hand grinder, but the other thing is that hand grinder, because it's specifically for horses, it costs $300. Whereas in all reality, it's no different than a 4-inch disc grinder, which costs you about, you can buy them anywhere from $60 to $100 or so. The thing is, they produce a lot of the 4-inch grinders because it's a multi-use tool. A lot of people use them for different things. And that hoof trimmer, the electric hoof trimmer, has a smaller handle, which is easier to manipulate with one hand. You got to understand too, that's a power tool. You make a mistake with that, and it's gonna take off way more than what one of these will. So I think that's about all I wanted to say. But these they did work really nicely, and it's basically just a chisel that's shaped a little bit differently than any kind of other chisel, and you chip away at it. But even the frogs, the only way I could actually cut the frogs, at least the top part of the frog, you know, the bottom part of the frog, but when you're looking at it like this, it's the top, is after I chipped off all the false sole, and then when all I have is hoof wall to deal with, I can nip that off. So it was easy for me to keep their toes backed up during this time period, so their toes never advance forward. You know, the hoof nippers will handle that because you can actually get a hold of it, even though it wasn't easy to cut. You could cut it, but when you're trying to grab false sole with nippers, and you got the nippers spread way out, and that stuff is, like I said, it's hard as a rock. Your nippers just want to slide off of it. Even after I said, well, I'll just sharpen these things. No, it didn't work. Just did not work. I could get little chips off of Shauna, but my Mustang, not at all. So once I did get the false sole off and nipped the hoof wall off, my frog was sticking up excessively. But now I can get my nippers and come across that very easily because I have nothing on the sides. See, you couldn't get at it because of the false sole buildup, and the frog is level with the sole, but you couldn't get at it. So just put that out there, you know. These are things you can make or have made if you live in the type of conditions I live in, you know, which is a very dry, arid country. All right, get creative. Build it yourself, or you know, go see somebody that can build it. Tell them what you got in mind, and see how it works. It's a trial and error thing. Like I said, you know, because I've tried it, I would add that little extra roll to it so I had a bigger surface to hit with my hammer. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. I started No Shave November early. Let's face it, you know, September, October, November, December. Well, by January I should have a pretty good coat. Okay. Enjoy yourselves. Talk to you later.